Hello and welcome to yesterday's Airlines. Phoenix have just announced their September releases, and so it is time to go through the super excitement that is the monthly set of Phoenixmodels. I don't mean to sound too sarcastic there. No, actually I do. Phoenix aren't exciting, and this set of releases is especially not very exciting, but let's go through them anyway and see what they think. Maybe you guys disagree. Maybe you think that Phoenix are producing excellent models every month. I don't know. Somebody's obviously buying them. But this month is interesting, mainly, in my opinion, due to its lack of real interest. So that perhaps says something about Phoenix and where they're at. Okay, anyway. Obviously, like and subscribe to the channel if you find me ranting about Phoenixmodels entertaining. I hope you enjoy the videos and check out my Facebook and Instagram profiles at Airlines, and obviously check out yesterdaysairlines.com too, because that is the place where we do a lot of new content. This week alone, I've reviewed the first Aviation 400 787, taken a really detailed look at the available 787s in 400 scale and gone through them with a fine-tooth comb to create a detailed rating for each. And coming up this week, we've got the new A330-900 mold from Aviation 400 as well. So plenty of good material on the site and coming up. Keep an eye out for that. But for now, let's have a look at what Phoenix have deigned to provide us this month. So we've got 11 models this month, which is, I guess, a relatively small month for Phoenix. And there weren't any Phoenix releases the last month, so that's perhaps just the way it runs for Phoenix. I'm not entirely certain of their release schedule, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're working not on a monthly schedule per se. Anyway, this month sees the return of some older molds that they haven't used for a while, which is both good and bad. And it also sees more of a similar sort of material that we've been seeing from Phoenix now for years and years and years, i.e. substantial amounts of Asian mainline models and a sprinkling of other bits and pieces around the edge. But we're going to start today, as always, looking at the Airbuses, and the first model, in fact the only Airbus this month from Phoenix, is a DHL European Air Transport Airbus A300-600, registered DAEAS, and this one's got this quite lovely pride tail going on there, for no doubt supporting LGBTQ rights, presumably. The livery actually is improved, I think, by the colourful tail. It kind of got that kind of trans-Brazil feel to it, which I quite like. And the all-yellow fuselage, perhaps a bit of an acquired taste, but it certainly stands out and looks better than the partially yellow fuselage that appears on DHL's surrogate airlines. So, yeah, no, this one actually, livery-wise, I'm quite liking. The problem is, of course, that Phoenix's A300 mold stinks. It really stinks. Phoenix have released 20 A300s over the years, so they don't release very many, and thank God, because, as I said, the mold stinks. There are some great things about the mold which make people prefer it over the Aero Classics mold, but those people are wrong. It is not better than the Aero Classics mold. The thing that people like about it is it's seamless. Okay, it's got slot-in wings, and the A300 doesn't tend to have much of a fuselage fairing, so Phoenix get away with the fact that their models almost ignore the fuselage fairing anyway when they have slot-in wings. But this time they've got it right because it doesn't really have one, and the slot-in wings are nice. And the majority of the mold is okay, I have to say. So it's one of those cases where, yeah, you're getting 95% of a good A300 from Phoenix and 5% of a terrible A300 from Phoenix. And the 5% that's terrible is obviously the nose cone and the cockpit region, which are just awful. Obviously, Airbuses have this really diagnostic nose, which is quite pointy. But the Phoenix nose is incredibly blunt and rounded and doesn't look like an A300. It's too short, the shape is wrong, it's almost like a Boeing nose. And the angle down from the cockpit's all wrong as well. So what you end up with is a model which looks great until you get to the front of it when it looks appalling. And for me, the nose cone is probably the most important area of any model. If you get that wrong, then the rest of the model kind of is irrelevant. So yeah, I just really dislike this mold. And it's such a shame because they released, I think it was last year, the prototype colours, which is a model I would have loved to have got, but the nose, it's appalling. It's really, really bad. So the Aero Classics competing A300 has got a really, really good nose, and most of the rest of it. The only down point of it is obviously the Aero Classics don't put aerials on, but mainly that it's got quite a large wing seam, which I can completely live with because overall the model looks great, whereas the Phoenix one does not. I should also add that Phoenix's undercarriage, though nicely detailed, is a little bit large on the tyre front. That's not a deal killer by any margin, but the nose is, and therefore this one for me has to go down into gas guzzler territory. It's not quite scrap metal, but it's nearly is. But it's gas guzzler. I'll put this one in gas guzzler territory. Moving on to the Boeings, and the next two releases are both Japan Airlines 737-800s, JA329J, JA337J. These are both in Gemon colours, apparently. What the hell is Gemon, you ask? I have no idea, is my answer. Gemon, let's have a look and see what it is. Apparently, Gemon, it's related to a group of people who used to live on Hokkaido, which is one of the main Japanese islands. So I'm not really sure what this necessarily relates to, this scheme directly. There's a long page on Wikipedia here talking about the Gemon people, and I might even be saying it wrong because I don't know how to pronounce a word with that interesting straight line over the top. I'm not entirely sure what it's even called. Looking at the actual liveries, well, obviously Japan Airlines scheme, I said before, is the most bland scheme in the universe. But like China Eastern, that means you can put interesting special colours on it, so that's good. But I mean, looking at the liveries, these ones don't look that exciting, to be honest. One of them looks like it's got a collection of really weird animals on it, and the other one it looks like it's got a collection of, I mean, I don't know what those things are. It's like large circles with legs. They always look like Christmas tree decorations. They're not exactly thrilling or particularly exciting. They're just kind of stickers in their own right. They don't really do anything interesting with the scheme. So neither of them are particularly exciting. As I've said many times before, the Phoenix 737-800 is mediocre at best, especially by modern standards. The shape of most of the elements, the wings, the engines, the engine pylons, the undercarriage, the nose, is all really, really ordinary, if not just plain bad. And Phoenix can't print the cockpit windows. Of the last three that they've made, their cockpit windows have been all over the shop again, whereas the previous three before that, the cockpit windows were almost properly placed. So what are Phoenix doing? I don't know. Lazy and stupid when it comes to 737-800s. So yet again, as you can tell, my love for this mould and this livery is going to storm these ones straight down into gas guzzler territory too, because they're going to be bad models, you know. And I got in a couple of arguments with people who didn't seem to care that they printed the 737 cockpit windows in completely the wrong place, and I'm just stunned by this admission that people don't notice this. It's not a small detail; it's enormous, enormous, and it changes the entire look of the model. So, rubbish. Thankfully, Phoenix steer us into more favourable territory with a couple of 747-8 freighters. The first one of these is another DHL themed one, but this is one where it's polar air cargo and it's only got the DHL on the tail and a completely bland yellow tail. I really don't know why DHL don't put their logo on the tail. it just produces this really, really mediocre, couldn't be bothered to think about it or finish it kind of livery. So really don't like that. But the Phoenix 747-800 itself is perfectly good and a really quite decent mould. So there's no problems from that perspective, just the fact that the livery is so boring. I might add that this is the first of this month's models the Phoenix have done before. You're probably not too surprised to hear this. Phoenix have done a lot of what they do previously. So they have already released N853 GT. It was quite a few years ago, but nonetheless, they've basically just been able to reuse exactly the same artwork to produce what is going to be N855 GT. Maybe you missed out on the original release. Who knows? But quite why you feel the need, you know, to re-release models like this. I guess there's a market for them, but it's not interesting. And it's not a particularly interesting scheme. So this one's going to go up into workhorse territory. The mold's good, the livery's blah, and they've done it before. Next up on the 747-8 front is a United Parcel Services 747, and this one's registered N628UP. I really like the UPS scheme. It's subtle, it's modern, it's attractive, it's a great livery, even if there's this huge chunk of white still on the plane. This will be nice, I'm sure. Once again, it's not new though. Phoenix have done this model previously. They produced N605UP in 2017. So not that long ago, 5 years I admit, but it's not that long. And obviously this model or this scheme and aircraft type have been produced by Gemini multiple times, 4 times in fact. So it's not exactly hard to get hold of a United Parcel Services 747-8 freighter. And at least 2 of those versions that Gemini releases were interactive series ones as well. So you've got the whole gamut of possibilities here. But if you prefer the Phoenix mold, and then yeah, you could have bought that one from 2017, or you can get this one, I guess. But either way, again, even though the mold's nice, I quite like the livery. It's not new; they've done it before. It's another workhorse. Next up is a Boeing 767-300 ER with winglets. This one's in the colours of all Nippon. It's JA622A. I'm quite a big fan of the Phoenix 767. It competes quite well with the jcwings version, except it doesn't have the wing seam. But this is a case where Phoenix, by having slotting wings versions, ignore the fairing, which does exist on the 767. And so, even though it doesn't have the seam, you could argue that the jcwings version with the seam is better because it does have a fairing. This is a common problem with Phoenix molds. The A320, A321, this 767, and they're not alone. They just ignore the fairing, slap the wing straight into the fuselage. Anyway, it's still a good mold. I still quite like it. The subject matter here, it's not innovative in any way. Phoenix have made this model twice previously. They made JA627A a few years back, and going slightly further back in time, they made JA625A. So now we get JA622A. I believe, looking at it, the scheme is exactly the same with this inspiration of Japan titles next to the all Nippon. I'm sure it'll be a perfectly okay model, but again, it's just repetitive. Where is the innovation? Where is the interest? I mean, what Phoenix literally competing against themselves, it seems. It's like, hey, stuff this, I'm not even going to bother trying to copy what other manufacturers do. Let's just do exactly what we did a couple of years ago, shall we? Because that's really exciting. You know, lo and behold, it doesn't seem that anyone even thought at Phoenix that they might actually try and create some new livery aircraft combinations. So, not sure what's going on, but this has to be workhorse again, doesn't it? Because it's just been there, seen it, done it, nothing special. And in that similar vein, we're moving into 777s. And I guess technically these ones have not been done before, but they have been announced by JC. So this is the other side of the coin, I guess, where they're just mirroring releases from jcwings. But at least Phoenix will get their releases out in a sensible timescale. The first of these is another DHL. It's a very DHL month, and this one is the new Singapore Airlines freighter registered 9VDHA. It's been announced by jcwings, I think it was last month, but who knows when they'll release it. And they're doing the flaps up and flaps down versions. Phoenix don't have flaps down, so it's just going to be a standard release, but that's fine. And I'm sure it'll be fine as long as they get the cockpit windows in the right place and size, which they do most of the time with their 777s. The mold's good. This one's at least got big Singapore Airlines titles and DHL on the tail, unlike the Polar Air Cargo. So the livery just fits a little nicer. It's okay, but it's not exciting. Once again, it's just not exciting. And for me, again, it's going to be workhorse. There's a lot of workhorse. And stay tuned for more, because the next release is Qatar Airways 777 freighter. And again, it's the same model that's been announced by jcwings. But jcwings one is going to be interactive. So that's exciting. And I gave that one a high flyer, I believe, even though I found the Qatar Airways cargo scheme to be boring, and this We Are Moved by People, special version of the scheme to be even less attractive than the standard scheme. Yeah, it just mirrors what I said about the previous model. The mold's fine, they'll get it out before jcwings, but it's not going to be as good as what jcwings are producing. And yeah, it's workhorse. I don't like the livery either. And rounding off the workhorse is the next release, which perhaps is the definition of Phoenix. Bland. It's an all Nippon 777-300ER. It has the registration JA789A, and if that registration is memorable to you, it's probably because this aircraft until recently had the BB-8 Star Wars scheme attached to it, but that has now been removed. And what are you left with? You're left with an enormous long white fuselage with absolutely nothing on it, and an ANA tail. So obviously Phoenix would want to produce that. This is the only model this month that is really unique in the sense like, oh no, that's not true, the DHL, the A300 was too. But there are very few models this month that are actually unique. This is one of them, but it's incredibly bland. Even if I was an all Nippon fleet collector, I might not consider buying this because it's so boring. It literally is just a white aeroplane with all Nippon on the tail. And I think some very small tiles near the rear of the fuselage. I mean, nice mould, not the best 777 in the universe, but decent. Incredibly tedious livery, workhorse. So finally, bringing up the rear are the last two models, and these two are, for me, the most exciting models of the month, even though they are re-releases. and this says so much about Phoenix. Like, the most interesting models of the month are re-releases, but at least they're on an interesting aircraft type this time around. They're both aviation IL-96s. Phoenix is the only person or the only group with an IL-96 mold. They've made 14 previous to these two, so they've produced a decent number. They don't actually produce them very often, but they have made both of these previously, which is, I guess, probably just has to be because there aren't that many schemes for the IL-96. But I think these will still be popular because the type is popular, it's interesting, and it's unique. And let's face it, the Phoenix IL-96 mold is bang on. It's an excellent, excellent mold. It's one of the few molds now where I can stand there and with my hand on my heart and say, that's a really good mold from Phoenix. So I'm really pleased to see that it's still available and it is something that can get used. It's just a shame in a sense that there aren't too many of these models that they can make which are unique. Because what we've got here this month is a Cubana IL-96. This one's wearing the Reg CU T1250, whereas the previous release made 4 years ago in 2018 was CU TU1251. So there's very little difference. And the other one is an Aeroflot IL-96 RA96015, when the previous release was RA96008, and that admittedly was made 10 years ago in 2012. So that one's almost certainly definitely in need of a re-release, because I know that is a super popular release and it's very hard to find the version which Phoenix made. In fact, I don't even own that model. So this is possibly the only one of these models this month which I would consider buying, and is and it's a re-release, but it's a re-release I don't have. So what can I say? For me, these two easily outstrip all of the others for both interest and mold quality. And so therefore I'm going to put both of these up there into high flyer territory, because I like their 96 mold. I think it's good that they are doing some re-releases of hard to find models like the Aeroflot. But it does say, again, you know, that Phoenix is rather out of ideas. But still, these are going to be nice, high flyer. Okay, so that's my roundup of the Phoenix releases this month. I'm not going to apologise for criticising Phoenix and for being downbeat about these releases, because they are just mediocre as a whole. There's a whole range of molds which they never update and aren't good, like the A300 and the 737-800. There's a whole range of aircraft airline combinations that they've made before and are just re-releasing again, like both the 747-8s, the 767s. And then there's the odd, I know what, we'll just copy what JC are doing, and you end up with both the 77 Freighters. And there's almost nothing about what they do which is unique or interesting, and that is their fault. There are plenty of interesting airline aircraft combinations out there. People criticise Gemini for repetition, but Phoenix are far more repetitive with what they're putting out, and typically on inferior molds too. So yeah, it's got to be said. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. A lot of these releases are just treading water mediocrity, and you can't even say that Phoenix are top of the game in terms of quality or printing or anything really. And I do wonder slightly if the fact that there's so much repetition here, so much reusing old designs and old molds like this is a case of Phoenix just not having the money, Phoenix being impacted by competition. Perhaps I'm making too big a thing out of this and that's not the case, but you know, why are they re-releasing 5 models this month which they've made previously? I mean, that doesn't cost them anything to do the design work on those, and it does kind of suggest that maybe Phoenix aren't doing that well. And if they're not, it's their own bloody fault, because they've been producing mediocre models for a long time. There's still good models to be found, don't get me wrong. Their 777s are nice, 747-8's nice, 767's decent, the A96 is excellent from a mold perspective, but the material on them is repetitive. Anyway, that's enough about me moaning about Phoenix. I don't know if you guys feel the same way or if you really get excited by these Phoenix releases. I get the feeling they sell well in Asia to people who really don't understand 400 scale models, is what I can say, because if you do, then surely you should be looking at other manufacturers for a good chunk of these models, or just saying, hey, that's not really up to standard. But that's it for this month for Phoenix. Hopefully next month they can change my mind, produce a more interesting set of models, but this month it's disappointing in my opinion. So there we go. I'll see you next month for more looking at the Phoenix releases, but before then I'm sure there'll be plenty of videos talking about more interesting stuff. So keep an eye out on the channel, follow me on the other channels, and I'll speak to you again soon. See ya.